which I always found to be so crazy, man, that there were people that were in the NFL, black players in the NFL who weren't in alignment with what you all were trying to do. Can you just talk a little bit about having to be arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with men who politically, as a humanitarian, just didn't align with the way that you thought that life should be lived? Like, how do you do that? How do you have a guy's back on the field who doesn't have your back in real life?
We have a very special guest on the show with us today. He's a former NFL wide receiver, activist, and now author with the release of his new memoir, Still Growing, Still Learning, Still Me. Please welcome Kenny Stills to the Fumble. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, a man of principalities, man. We appreciate having you. Out the gate, I want to ask, this is like kind of a random question, but do you have a quarterback soulmate, whether it's like Pop Warner to NFL, somebody who just gets you through the perfect ball to you with touch, never put you in harm's way?
That's hard to say. Drew Brees was the best quarterback that I played with by far, and that's because of his preparation. He was very meticulous on how he did things, and almost to the point where, he wanted to be able to throw the ball to a receiver with his eyes closed. So a lot of repetitions with him. I never felt like he put me in harm's way, but we didn't really necessarily connect in the same way off the field, and so it's hard to say. But on the field, yeah, I felt like there was nothing he could ever do wrong.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off that because I wanted to know, what head coach did you feel like had the biggest impact on your life when you were in the league specifically?
Okay. Yeah, in the league, the biggest impact would probably be Adam Gase. We went through, the protests together, and it was his first year as a coach, and it was a contract season for me. And so there was a lot of pressure on him to try and influence me in a certain way, from ownership and from general manager. And so we became a lot closer because of the very tough conversations that we had to have. And, that's something that I really appreciate him, for being able to work through those things as an older white male, with all these pressures on his back.
Since walking away from the game or no longer being in the league, what's your relationship like with the sport? Are you still proactively watching it? Have you like kind of distanced it? I know you said you like skiing or snowboarding and surfing. Are you still involved and interested in the NFL at all?
Yeah. So for the first couple of years, I stopped watching sports altogether. It was important for me to break that pattern. My whole life, since I can remember, I watched SportsCenter every night, got every sport update that I could possibly get. And so in order for me to change and move forward, I had to break some of those patterns. And yeah, so the first couple of years, I didn't watch any sports, especially football. And I got back to it this year, and it's been exciting for me just to watch and be a fan. I think for the first couple of years, I thought I could still play. And so that frustration when you watch the game would bring me to a place of, more frustration, actually thinking like, all right, well, I should be doing this. These guys aren't good enough. I could be still getting paid for this. And so now that I'm a couple years away from it and have found so much joy surfing, snowboarding, and in this next phase of my life, watching sports can just be fun for me.
So if you were a young receiver coming up right now, is there an active receiver out there that you would be studying meticulously?
Ooh, there's a bunch. I love the way that, Puka plays. I love the way that Justin Jefferson plays. Those two guys, route running, physicality with the ball in their hands after they catch it. Great examples of how to play our game.
And there's still a lot of people that miss you on the field. Like you just search your name on TikTok. It's a lot of people that still want to see you on the field, especially in your time in Miami. Do you feel like there's a head coach that can replace Mike McDaniel to kind of mimic the explosiveness that we've seen the Dolphins offense be in the last couple of years?
That's tough. I think Mike Tomlin, if he still continues to want to coach, would be a perfect fit down in Miami. Somebody that, has shown what, his ability to be able to win and what they can do on offense and defense. I think that's a big part of our game now, is figuring out how to stop all these offenses. The rules continue to change in favor of offense. And so how can, teams play better defense and also continue to put points on the board? So I'm interested to see if he still wants to coach or if he's hanging them up for good.
Let's transition into the thing that I would imagine is most near and dear to your heart. What would you say is the origin of your activist revolutionary spirit?
Honestly, back in 2016, when I first started getting involved, it was just that I wanted to vote. I hadn't exercised my right to vote at that time, and I had this calling on my heart to figure out how to get involved. And so I started paying attention to the debates, and that was at the time that it was Hillary and Donald Trump. And so I was trying to figure out what party I liked. My parents never talked to me about politics or government, anything in the government. And so how do I figure out what I like, who I'm going to vote for? And when I started paying attention, that opened my eyes to what was happening in our current events. Seeing black and brown people being gunned down by the police and there being no justice. And so to me, that felt wrong. And I was young and naive, and I felt that we had all the resources in this country. We're intelligent. We've got everything that we need to be able to solve problems. And I thought that as an athlete and somebody with a platform, if I could just educate folks on the problem, then we find the solution. We wipe our hands clean and we move on to the next thing. And so that was really the genesis for me. But then when I reach back even further, and I talk a little bit about it in the book, my great uncle was an activist as well, and a leader in the Chicano community up in Minnesota. And so that was already in my blood, which I didn't know until after the fact.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody realized the magnitude of what kneeling for the anthem would become. Even you protesting for Breonna Taylor was huge. Why do you feel like that was so important for you to do that as an athlete when most of the time athletes aren't really into politics or activism like that?
Yeah. In this instance, it was just something that was on my heart. I felt like a calling from higher power, whoever, we choose to believe in individually. But I had never been interested in anything like this before. And all of a sudden, here I am with this weight on my shoulders, feeling like I have to get involved. I talked to my agent, I talked to my family, I talked to my mentors, and everyone's like, hey, don't do this. Wait until you get your second contract. Wait until you're more comfortable, wait till your life is set. And for some reason, I'd pray on it, I'd sleep on it, and it was something that I had to do. I got up in front of my teammates the night before our first game on September 11th, 2016. I'm like, hey, a group of guys, we want to get involved in the protests, or we want to do something as a team. Are you guys interested in this? And, we had all this backlash even from my own teammates yelling and screaming. And, it drove a wedge in between our team. And so, but still, it was something that I had to do. And so, yeah, I was called to do it. I don't know why or what for, but that's brought me to this point, and it's something that I had to do, regardless of how it was going to affect my relationships, my status, my money, etc.
You actually just reminded me that I didn't pray yet today, so thank you for that reminder. The tension that existed in locker rooms during that time period, because there obviously was a divide, which I always found to be so crazy, man, that there were people that were in the NFL, black players in the NFL, who weren't in alignment with what you all were trying to do. Can you just talk a little bit about having to be arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with men who politically, as a humanitarian, just didn't align with the way that you thought that life should be lived? Like, how do you do that? How do you have a guy's back on the field who doesn't have your back in real life?
Yeah, it was challenging. Especially being that our locker rooms were full of black and brown players. But also, I understood where they were coming from, even though I didn't agree with it. And that's a part of life, And so I had to do my job, and I was in a contract year. So, I had to go out there and ball with the guy next to me, all the while in private conversations, trying to educate them while I'm also educating myself, and continue to try and win football games. And a lot of people don't know this, but if you go back and look at the season, we started like 0-3 or 0-4. And so we have guys in the locker room coming to me like, we're losing because of you. We're losing because of this protest. We had phantom calls being thrown on me, flags for me holding or flags for me doing something that I wasn't even involved in. And so, the season started very rough. And there was a point in time where I figured like maybe I should stop doing this. I'm messing everything up for myself and for my team, and I continued to push through and persevere. And then we went on like an 8 or 10 game winning streak. We ended up making the playoffs, and all the things are kind of pushed behind us. But yeah, it was a challenge for sure. And in the same time, I was still learning and growing, trying to educate myself, because before I got involved, like I said, I knew nothing. I started reading a ton. I stopped playing video games. I picked up the books. I started listening to podcasts, and I was investing everything I could to try and learn about our history so that I could better handle, the situations that I was in with my teammates and with outsiders and people on the internet and so on and so forth.
Did you have a relationship with Kaepernick before you started kneeling, or did you ever have a relationship with him?
No, none of us had any relationship previous to us getting involved in the protest. Eric and Colin were on the same team, obviously, so they had their relationship. But no, I just saw what these guys were doing from afar. I saw what Megan Rapinoe was doing. I saw what the girls were doing in the WNBA, and I said, "Hey, this looks like a peaceful way to be able to try to make change." And I agreed with what they did. I saw the backlash they were receiving, but I felt, like I said, if we could just educate as many people as possible, we're smart enough, we've got the resources, we can make the changes, and we'll move forward. And obviously, that wasn't the case.
Were you ever conflicted about continuing your career when Cap clearly wasn't ever going to get back into the league? And what do you think was the difference between you two in terms of how the league received you?
I wouldn't say that I was conflicted about continuing to play. I mentioned it in the book a little bit. I was conflicted about how we handled the situation as players. The NFL ended up putting together their own little advisory board, basically, and to try to figure out how to move forward with a solution to the protest. And so Malcolm Jenkins and a couple of other guys ended up heading this group of guys, and we felt, the guys that were taking a knee, that we should not move forward with any contract negotiations with the league until Colin's situation was handled. And that's not how the other guys felt, so they ended up moving forward with the NFL and doing this whole fundraiser, for lack of a better word. And that is when I stepped away from working with those guys and really focused on my own book tours, or my own tours in the off season, going to learn about what was happening in the South. And I think the way that I handled it in comparison to Colin allowed me to continue to have my career, right? I tried to do everything that I could to work with law enforcement. I tried to do everything that I could to educate myself and to be palatable to the league and to the people that are the higher ups that are in control of what's happening with the league. And I think that put me in a position to continue to play, but eventually I ended up on the sideline and not playing as much, and then found my way outside of the league.
When you create something from the heart like this book, does it matter how it's received or the amount of notoriety that it gets, or is the victory in just its completion?
Honestly, the victory was in its completion, for sure. It's been and it's felt great to have good reviews from friends and family and people that are close to me, my loved ones, because it was important to me how I told this story, right? I have to talk about childhood trauma, right? And that affects my parents. I don't want to embarrass them or disrespect them. I have to talk about the tough conversations that I have with my coaches throughout the league, and I don't want to burn bridges with the NFL. And so, yes, it feels good to have that validation, but at the same point, I didn't write it for that. I wrote it because I knew that I needed to tell my own story. I knew that there was opportunity to be able to help other people, and that, if I didn't do it, no one would. And so, I didn't want time to pass and me forget about little details and not be able to tell my story the way it should be.
Kenny, we have to talk about the ever-changing landscape of college football, right? Like, I feel like I've been talking about that the last couple of weeks. There's thousands of kids right now in the transfer portal. When you were playing at Oklahoma, did you ever think that you, in like 10 plus years, that you would see college football change in the way that we're witnessing now with NIL and the transfer portal and all the things?
I did not think that it would change in the way that it has, but I'm very happy for these kids. The onus and the blame goes on the NCAA for not putting a system together that works for everyone. And that should be our frustration as people. But yeah, I'm happy for these kids. When I was in the college, I was broke. I had a $900 scholarship check. I paid $600 in rent, and I paid $100 for my phone bill. So I had $200 as, 17, 18, 19-year-old to live. And that's not enough money. And then they didn't give us a parking pass. We had to pay for parking pass. I had all these tickets when I graduated, or when I went to graduate, and they wouldn't give me my diploma until I paid off them
Crazy.
tickets. I'm like, bro, like, and so yeah, I'm very happy for these kids. I never thought I would see the day that these kids are getting broke off the way that they are. It puts a big challenge on them as far as how they go about this process. But I don't blame those kids at all. If somebody, it's just like business, right? If you're doing your job really well here, and somebody offers you more money, then you have an opportunity to tell the school or your business, hey, you want to up my pay? No, okay, well, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And so, these kids got to get it, and I'm happy that they're getting it.
I didn't know PWIs was holding diplomas too. I thought that was just an HBCU thing for parking tickets. I ain't know that. This is news to me.
My mom hit me like, yeah, the school wrote us a letter. You can't get your diploma until you pay off these tickets. I'm like, what? How is that not part of my scholarship?
That's crazy. Sports gambling is all the conversation recently. There was an indictment just passed down today on 20 NCAA basketball players from some years ago who were fixing games. Do you think the integration of sports gambling is messing up the integrity of sports in totality?
100% sports gambling is messing with the integrity of the game. It's hard to believe. We're humans, right? There's human error in referees. It's so common, and a lot more common than you think. And people aren't as intelligent as we give them credit for. It's everyone's going to get caught, and we all think we're going to get away with it until we don't. And so, yeah, I think it's messing up the game for sure. I see how it's fun. I have a ton of friends who are into sports gambling. I don't gamble myself. I like holding on to my money. But yeah, it's definitely messing with the game, and I don't know the fix outside of removing it totally.
I think we kind of a little too far now to remove it.
Yeah.
We've gone too far.
I mean, I would just bring it back to Vegas and that's it. But yeah, no, it's a moneymaker for sure. It does make the games more interesting. But yeah, it's too many cases of people out there, trying to fix the games, and it puts a challenge on us to trust the referees, because we're not using technology enough. I think when it comes to refereeing in all of our sports, we can be using tech way more, and eliminating a lot of these mess ups. But yeah, it's too much responsibility on a human, and human error is just we can't trust humans.
Right. And some people can't even trust the athletes now themselves because they think that they may be doing stuff.
That too. If you see some sketchy behavior out there, it's probably there's probably something going on.
Damn. So AJ Brown dropping all them passes in the playoffs. Should be like, brother.
You're a Philly fan?
Nah. I don't have a team anymore. I've retired I'm a retired Giants fan.
Okay.
Yeah,
ask him about that, Kenny.
Y'all about to get Harbaugh. Y'all should be straight.
Respectfully, I'm cool. Yeah. My homeboy is a DB coach for the Panthers, so wherever he goes, I just support my guy Cooley, man. Shout out to Jonathan Cooley. Yeah, that's my dog. Somebody stop hating. Transitioning back into activism and revolutionary work, do you have faith, honestly, that we can course correct society? Is there any scenario in which this country and this world starts to treat Black and brown people as equal to our white counterparts?
Man, I try to do my best to stay hopeful and optimistic. But yeah, I think that's it's hard to say. I think I try to focus more on our Black and Black relationships, and bringing us together, and not really focus as much on what white people are doing, to be honest. But yeah, we're in a tough spot, especially in the direction that we're going as a country. But yeah, I think if we can individually, do our best, then hopefully as a collective we can all come together. But yeah, it's hard to stay hopeful, hard to stay optimistic, but I try to do my best.
When you saw the decals on NFL helmets and the wording in the back of the end zone, did you think that moved the needle at all societally? Do you think it was a statement of real allyship from the NFL to Black Lives Mattering, or any of the statements that that existed?
Absolutely not. A lot of what the NFL has done with the Inspire Change movement is just to check the box. And that's not necessarily a knock on the NFL. I think that corporate in general really struggle with doing things that matter. It's a lot of box checking. And so that was a big part of the problem, and why I struggled to work with the NFL and started doing things on my own. It's because I just felt like, we're checking the box. We could obviously do a lot more. We are the most recognizable league in the United States. We have all the money and all the resources. We definitely have, the people power to do more, and we choose not to. And that's frustrating, for people that, are paying attention. I know what's happening, but yeah, the flags, the writing, all that stuff, it did nothing. It frustrated probably the average NFL fan, and that's about it.
Yeah. I would love an update on where that money went that they committed to giving to certain communities. I would love to see what parks and recreation centers and education centers were actually birthed from that great financial windfall, from not even just the NFL, but a lot of companies during that time period, around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. There were so many commitments financially. I would just love an update to see where that money has gone, for real.
Yeah, no, it's the NFL. What I mentioned about earlier was the Players Coalition that was built basically to move forward from the protests. And they have a website that talks about all of the things that they've done in litigation. And they've seemed to make a ton of progress on the things that they've done. But yeah, I think it's hard to say where all those funds have gone.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here, man, real quick, give me your top 3 travel destinations for a brother of a certain frequency. Places you gotta go see.
Ooh, you gotta go to Indonesia. You've got to go to China, and you've got to go to Japan. All Asia for me at the moment. I absolutely love Asian culture. China is one of the most surprising places that I've been to in the past couple of years. I've basically been traveling on and off since I retired. Yeah, Japan, same thing. Beautiful, lots of food. I snowboard and surf, so some of the best powder in the world is in Japan. And
talking about snow, y'all. Got it. Sorry,
yeah.
Just got
it. Bali is a place that people go, that are very interested in health and wellness. So it's a lot of healing vibes there, a lot of surf island vibes as well, and a place that you definitely can't miss.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody out there know, do not travel with your plant medicine to these countries, okay? You can find ways to get what you need without risking your freedom. I just would like to caution people out there to stop doing that. It's not worth the risk, fam.
It is not. Do not travel with anything outside of your prescription medication, and make sure you have your little sheet with you.
Anyways, Kenny, thank you so much for coming on with us. This was such an uplifting and powerful conversation, and you got to come back.
Yeah.
You got to come back.
I'd love to.
Congratulations, man, on the completion of important work. It's a really trying and tough, mentally, spiritual thing to create something and put it out into the world. So shout out to you, man, for getting the job done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm interested. Make sure you guys get a copy, and then interested to hear your thoughts.